How are you? Welcome to Critical Moves of Telesur. Not satisfied with taking over some territory like the Greenland island, Donald Trump spoke about the need of United States to reconquer foreign space, with special emphasis in the moon and in the short-term Mars. What are the pretexts that the current administration uses to launch their race to the space? What are the allies? Who are the allies, and what are the opponents? What are the implications? Not only geopoliticals, because they go beyond the land, but in space. What is this posture that on one hand, it is still the epicenter of COVID-19, and on the other hand, they still project themselves in November. This is what we're going to be talking about today. Let's begin. As we said before, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, signed an executive order that supports the use of the resources and the moon and other planets, just recently published. This has some antecedents. The President had already spoken about positioning the United States beyond the land, and we're also going to show you some statements of political figures. We must go beyond the next frontier. The United States is in the stars. I asked Congress to totally finance the Artemis project to guarantee that the next man and woman be on the moon be Americans. And we will use it as a platform to launch the first nation to have their flag on Mars. My administration has recognized the space as a war domain, and it has made of the Space Force a security priority. We are investing in new space capacities to project our military force to safeguard our interests, especially when it comes to defense and security. Space is basic for dissuasion, for communication, for navigation, early detection. NATO has no intention of putting alarms in space, but we have to ensure that all of their missions have all of the correct principles. And all of this will be just following international law. We're speaking about strengthening our internal strategies, and it must be in the framework of the European Union. But the new zones of space control, of cyberspace, the new doctrine of the space and military will guarantee our access and use of the space. And through it, we will strengthen the knowledge of space, and we will better protect ourselves with satellites. So to strengthen this doctrine and strengthen our strategies, there will be a space force that will be created within the Air Force. That will be the last instance in a space force. I would like to call your attention on that there will be no instruments that will limit an armed weapon. For example, if there's going to be space weapons, we would always have nuclear bombs on our heads. So, going to the international jurisdiction, it's important to recall, what does the treaty, the space treaty, establish? It was approved by the General Assembly of the United Nations in 1963 and signed in 1965 by the Soviet Union, United States, and the UK. Ever since 2017, 105 countries have ratified it and have adhered. This instrument defines space as an international interest space. And it says that the exploration of the moon and other planets are free, and they have to go by the equality, denuclearization, because it's prohibited to have nuclear arms in foreign space. There should also be mutual support, and nobody can claim sovereignty. Ever since 1958, United Nations has approved several resolutions on this behalf, and they all try to strive for using space for peaceful uses, and there will be no display of weapons. Let's begin the review of websites For example, the first one is RT says Russia, on the order of Trump, has said the attempts of privatizing space are unacceptable. Any attempt to privatize a foreign space is unacceptable. This was said by Kremlin, and in regards to a statement that was signed by Trump this Monday. This dispatch is from April 7th. Up until now, Distova could not say if this was an attempt to privatize space, but he says that the decision of the U.S. should be evaluated merely for their in legal terms. Sergei Sergeyev, the director of the International Roscosmos Cooperation, says that this is aggressive and that it's hindering the international cooperation. Sputnik also says in Article 17 of the next dispatch says Moscow accuses the U.S. of launching a satellite. So the United States is accusing Russia to send missiles, anti-satellites, to hide their own plans. On April 16, the U.S. Commander Force, General Raymond, accused Russia of launching an anti-satellite missile. And this is nothing more than an attempt of the United States to deviate the international attention of the real disputes that they are bringing about, and to justify their bringing about weapons to space. They are also asking for additional funds to this end. The spokesperson has said that Moscow believes that there is a campaign against Russia to bring down any Russian initiatives of peace, to stop any arms races in space. I take advantage to recommend the following text that appeared on April 12th. It says United States is privatizing the moon in the middle of the pandemic. This was written by Javier Fonseca. In the midst of the coronavirus, President Trump has taken advantage to sign an executive order which represents a definite step to privatizing exterior space. Donald Trump once more has showed that it has no tactics, and he's done it in the worst possible place, because one of the first things that when he took office was to withdraw from the Paris Accord. Now he wants to bring down the agreement of the so-called moon. This was that was signed in 1979, that sent all of the sovereignty of any planets to the international community. The vice director of Roscosmos, the Russian airspace agency, says, I quote, "The attempts to take over the planets will very difficultly push the other countries to cooperate positively." This was written by the White House, and it says, I open quotes, "Open space is the dominion of all humanity, and the United States doesn't see it as a common good," close quotes. So foreign space is a resource of unlimited resources. You have many elements that are used to make cell phones and other devices. They also have helium-3, and you have lots of that in the moon that would help create nuclear fusion, and this would be the solution to providing electricity. So the powers that reach the moon will be those who have a privileged starting point in the electric war in the future. Let's not forget that in 2019, the Chinese Spatial Agency sent a satellite called Chang'e 4 that landed in the dark side of the moon, which has never been done. But behind it, behind this scientific milestone, there is some interest of trying to explore the surface of the moon. And it's in this context where President Donald Trump signs this executive order, of which we will be speaking with Jorge Gestoso from Washington. Welcome, Jorge.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. President Trump has signed on April 6th an executive order regarding the exploitation of the natural resources of the moon and other planets. So the executive order reminds, and I quote, the United States is not part of the Moon Treaty, and it doesn't believe that it is an effective instrument or necessary to guide the countries on how to proceed in exploit and in the long term, and in all of the scientific discoveries in both in the moon and in other planets. We also think that the United States should have the right to exploit and extract any resources that are in the moon. This, according to the applicable law for space, is a legal dominion that it belongs only to the human beings. So the United States doesn't think it's a commonwealth, and therefore the policy of Washington will be to support the international initiatives to extract the resources in other planets. Let's go back to you, Ray. Thank you very much, Jorge. Let's go to our first pause. Remember, you can participate with us, giving us your opinion through the question of the day. Today says, amid COVID-19, Donald Trump has signed an executive order that shows the intention of the United States to exploit the resources beyond land. Why does the White House do this this at this moment? We'd like to hear from you. We'll be right back.
Innovation, science, the technological breakthrough, and its influence in society.
Viajeros del saber, el futuro está aquí.
Atomy. Monday, only on Telesur.
The great powers of the world are now aiming at the moon, some with commercial purposes and others with the purpose of security. Others are seeking to do investigation. Let's do a zoom in this natural satellite. The moon, a geopolitical desire. The moon is the only natural satellite of the land. It has a diameter of 3,476 kilometers, and it's the fifth greatest satellite of the solar system. It has been an inspiration for many centuries, with a strong influence in in
arte o
calendar,
la
in
mitología.
art,
Su influencia
mythology.
gravitatoria produce las mareas
Their
y el aumento
forces
de la duración de los
produce
días.
the
En su
gravity
interior
and
está formada por un
waves.
núcleo de hierro, seguido por un
Within they
manto
have
semisólido, uno rígido y una
several
corteza
layers
exterior
of
dura. Al realizar su
different
trayectoria,
elements.
hay un cambio gradual en la porción visible
When
e
you go
iluminada de este
to the
satélite,
moon, you
es
can
decir,
see that
en
there
la
are
forma en que se
different
muestra la
phases,
luna hacia el planeta.
how you can see it
Es
from
lo que se conoce como
the
fases
land.
lunares,
These are
a
called
saber,
phases,
luna
and you
nueva,
have
que no se
full
ilumina con
moon,
su cara totalmente centrada en la Tierra,
which is
de
not,
forma que se hace
you cannot
imposible su
see it
observación.
clearly. It's not
Cuarto creciente,
easy to
solo
see.
la mitad del disco lunar se encuentra iluminado.
Fourth crescent,
Luna llena,
full
todo el
moon,
disco aparece iluminado.
where you can see all of
Cuarto menguante,
the moon,
el disco lunar vuelve a presentar
and the other
reducción
fourth,
del área iluminada
which
día tras
shows
día,
just a
hasta
part
quedar
of the
nuevamente
illuminated
brillando
part.
solo la mitad. Hasta el momento,
Up
la luna es
until
el único
now, the
cuerpo
moon
celeste
is the
en el
only
cual el
planet
ser
in
humano
which
ha
the human
realizado un
being
descenso tripulado.
has
Las
not
exploraciones fueron
landed
iniciadas
with
por la extinta Unión Soviética
with
bajo
a
su programa
staff.
Luna, con la
And there
ayuda
was a
de una nave
plan that
espacial
was
no
called
tripulada en
Luna
los
in
años 60.
1960.
Al ser los primeros en
And they were the
alunizar,
first
los
to
soviéticos dieron un paso significativo en la carrera
to
espacial
step
que
down.
habían iniciado
They
en
had an
1957
advantage
con el lanzamiento del
in
primer
with the
satélite
Apollo,
artificial Sputnik y el
with the
primer hombre en el
Sputnik and the
espacio,
first man
Yuri
on the moon.
Alexeyevich Gagarin.
That was
Lo siguió
Gagarin.
Estados Unidos
Then
con el
afterwards it
programa
was
Apolo en
United States
1968.
in 1960
La
with the
luna
Apollo
gira sobre un
program.
eje de rotación que
The
tiene una
moon
inclinación de
rotates
88,3
with an inclination
grados
of
y tarda
88.3
27,32
degrees, and
días
it
en
takes
dar una vuelta sobre sí misma.
27.32 days
Aunque
to
la luna se
rotate
mantiene
on
bajo el
its
Tratado
own.
sobre el espacio
There
ultraterrestre,
is a
libre de
treaty
exploración
on
por parte de cualquier
on the
nación con fines
use of
pacíficos,
land and
se ha
any
hecho un
purpose
objetivo
with it,
apetecible
but
para
it
las
still
grandes
is a very
corporaciones mineras.
desirable
Este
place
cuerpo
to
celeste
go.
posee más de
This planet
1.700
has
millones de toneladas
more
de
than
agua
16
depositadas en sus polos
16
en forma de
million
hielo,
tons of
así como una
water,
enorme cantidad
and
de
it has a
piedras
great
raras,
amount
traducidas
of
estas
rare
en
lands
17 elementos químicos
that are
fundamentales
divided in
para la
17
industria tecnológica.
fundamental elements.
¿Qué tal si antes de pasar al análisis
So how about if
revisamos
before
además
we
el
go to
contexto que
this
circunda
to
esta
this we
decisión del
go we see the
presidente de
context.
deshacerse de los recursos de la luna?
El presidente de Estados Unidos,
President Donald
firmó un
Trump
decreto que
signed
proclama el
an
derecho de su
executive
país a
decree on the
efectuar la
right
extracción y
to
explotación
go forward
comercial
with
de
the
los recursos
extraction of the
minerales de la Luna y
mineral
otros
resources
cuerpos
of the moon
celestes.
and
La
other
orden
planets.
ejecutiva le
This
indica al
executive
secretario de
order
Estado
shows
a oponerse a cualquier
that
intento
they are
por
able
parte
to
de otros
oppose any
estados u
attempt by
organizaciones
any other
internacionales
organizations
de
or
considerar el
countries
Tratado de
of
la Luna como
considering the
expresión
moon
del derecho
agreement as an
internacional
expression of international
consuetudinario.
law.
En este caso, el decreto
Therefore,
aprobado por la Casa
this
Blanca no
decree
reconoce el
that
acuerdo
was
que gobierna
done
las
by
actividades de los estados
by
en
the
la Luna
president,
y
it
otros
doesn't
cuerpos celestes, más
recognize
conocido como Tratado de la Luna, firmado y
the previous
ratificado por
treaty
17
that
países
was ratified by
comprometiéndose a
16
compartir con
countries
otras naciones
that
los
agreed on
recursos
sharing
extraídos de este
with
cuerpo
all of
celeste.
humanity
Rusia,
any
en consonancia
resources.
con el Tratado del
Russia,
Espacio Ultraterrestre
following
de
the
1967,
the
que rige las
1967
actividades de los estados en la
agreement
exploración y
that
utilización del espacio
regulates
exterior,
what the
aboga por
countries
un
can
acuerdo
and cannot do,
internacional
is
antes de
calling
cualquier
upon an
explotación
agreement
de los
before
recursos en
any
la Luna y otros
exploitation of the
cuerpos,
resources
al
on the
tiempo que
moon.
rechaza las intenciones
Likewise,
del
it
gobierno de
rejects
Estados
the
Unidos
intentions of
de
the United States
monopolizar
to
el cosmos.
monopolize
Los intentos del presidente Trump
all
de
of the
apropiarse de la Luna u otra
exploration.
forma del espacio
However,
se suman a sus
Donald Trump
intereses de marcada
thinks that it's just one more
extraterritorialidad,
of his
bajo los cuales
interests
también han
under
intentado
which
ejecutar la
he
compra
has
de
tried to
territorios, como
also
es el caso de Groenlandia, una
buy
zona
some other
autónoma que
lands like
políticamente pertenece a
Greenland,
Dinamarca. El
which
interés de
belongs
Estados
to
Unidos en
Denmark.
Groenlandia
The
data de varias
interest
décadas atrás
comes
y
back
se
through
encuentra
many,
en la
many
importante
centuries
base militar
because
aérea de
there
Thule,
was an
instalada
important
en
military
épocas de la
base
Guerra Fría, la
that
cual
was
se utilizó
installed in
para
the
la
Cold
vigilancia
War,
del
which was
espacio con
used
radares muy
for
potentes.
vigilance
El
in the
interés por
airspace.
Groenlandia ha
The
aumentado en
interest for
medio del
Greenland
incremento de la
has
navegación en el
increased
Círculo Polar Ártico
now
y
that
de
there
la
is more
competición
navigation
internacional para hacerse
through
con minerales
these
importantes.
places.
La isla más grande del mundo está
The biggest one in the
estratégicamente
world
ubicada entre
is
América del Norte y
strategically
Europa,
located
lo cual
between
facilita
Europe
entregas
and
a
North
muchos
America, which would
mercados.
help the delivery to many markets.
Habiendo hecho esta introducción,
Having
pasamos
done
al
this
análisis. Desde
introduction,
España nos acompaña Carlos
I
Martínez,
would like
licenciado en
to,
Derecho, desde Puerto
I would
Rico,
like to
doctor
greet
Olayo
Carlos
Sastre
Martínez.
León Borja, docente universitario,
And we
experto en
have
asuntos de
Dr.
seguridad,
Leon Borja. He's a
defensa e
lawyer.
inteligencia
He's
militar.
a
A ambos les doy
specialist
la
in
bienvenida a la
international
jugada
law.
crítica de hoy.
Welcome, both of you. Carlos,
pretende Estados
what does the
Unidos
United
con esta
States
nueva
pretend
orden
with this
ejecutiva
new wave,
que firmó
with this
recién
new executive
el
order
presidente
who
Donald
that was
Trump?
just
Ayúdenos
signed?
a interpretarla.
Can you please help us interpret it?
Hola, tardes. Pues yo creo que son son diferentes
Well, I think
motivos
that there are different
impulsar esta orden ejecutiva
different objectives. First of all, it's to distract the attention on their incapacity to confront the coronavirus pandemic. United States has the intent to go to the moon. United States is having their own crisis. So United States is trying to launch a smoke curtain so the citizens won't follow the disaster of his policies. Apart from this curtain, this smoke curtain, Donald Trump is somebody who really doesn't like the internal law, just we've seen the last days, and he also disregards the international law. And he really disregards any law that ties him to do anything. And in this way, this decree really is not important for him. However, in the long term, we can say that there are no mechanisms to stop him, because nothing of this was thought of. However, China is also a contender in this race. They have also put their money and their time in trying to produce vegetables in the same conditions that are the ones that are presented on the moon. And we can say that Trump is showing his propaganda based on this, and he's trying to launch a satellite that would belong to the humanity. Dr. Layo, as an expert in international security, intelligence, defense, I ask you, to what extent could this reconquering of the moon on behalf of the United States have the implication for the internal security? And on the other hand, it's one of the objectives. This space race it's another objective of NATO, who just had the 70th anniversary. Well, yes, as my colleague just said, as well as you have, they have at their heart the interest is exploration and exploitation of helium-3, which is a future resource of income. And on behalf of China, there is interest. But the Indian airspace has been denied this possibility. And in the future, what they would try to do is exploit helium-3 along with other resources that you have mentioned that are existing in the moon. I recall when the director of Roscosmos, in the past decade, this is the first decade of the 21st century, he spoke of the possibility of the exploitation of helium-3. Just recently, a spokesperson of the Russian Space Agency has said that technically it is not rentable, it's not feasible to do so, but Russia has already considered this possibility. There's even this University of Tomsk that is trying to establish a refinery for helium and nitrogen. This is just a project, but what it shows is that the United States, with what Trump has said, what he says is that at the long run, maybe when it's economically positive to go and exploit resources in the land, because of course this is going over and over again, but at some point the land will be already too weakened, and we will have to find somewhere else. As we know that there are some asteroids that are very rich in ice, in many other valuable minerals. However, Doctor, I would like to ask from you, it is relevant that from all of these powers that you have mentioned, Doctor, I would like to ask from you, it is relevant that from all of these powers that you have mentioned, and what they want to do is exploit the resources. Now it's interesting that somebody reaches the moon with the element that this is how things should be seen, both for security and defense. Those who have said something in this regard have been United States, France to a certain degree, and NATO. Well, there is already a space race that is not out in the open, but it's just part of the Second Cold War, and this is a fight between the Russian Federation and the United States. This is based on systems, be these of navigation or weapons management, early detection, robot satellites to destroy and capture satellites of somebody that's your enemy. So apparently there are air-surface anti-satellite missiles. So it's important to see if there is going to be a display of space air organizations that are armed with lasers could carry out anti-satellite operations. However, in terms of the moon, a colony in the moon could also be used for practicing, and from then to launch more investigation and try to get more resources from the moon. But at the same time, for security reasons, and alleging that it's important to protect the interest of the companies, these big countries begin to display a defense system, but of course have an objective, which is to destroy the weapons of a potential enemy. I think that unfortunately this is just a matter of time. I think that if it's possible, technology, and should they have the resources, there will be a space race. And according to the treaty, if there's not an international discipline, that everything be for the benefit of humanity and not for a single country. What might happen is what happened from the 15th century on, that was a race to have more colonies. And this could be the same thing on the moon. On the moon and the cyberspace. So this could be something dangerous, because maybe the human patrimony will not be respected. Carlos, back to you. Checking the digital websites, we see that people are very active in today's edition, and they question themselves. Donald Trump cannot handle COVID-19, and do you think that he's going to be able to handle the moon? Well, in fact, they're not even able to send astronauts to the space center. So those who do it, they do it in Soviet vessels. United States will seek for support in Europe, but is showing that they're not going to follow these type of adventures. And of course, they will have to do it only with their means, and nobody else probably will support them. And let's see, after this pandemic, how much money they're going to still have left to invest in this endeavor. So the exploitation that the United States have gone forward is coming to a limit, and there is no common grounds on this topic. And what we should try to do is to see what type of astronauts they're going to send. They're not only going to send and of course they can't even take care of the humans on land, so it's I don't think they'll have the money for this endeavor, which is fairly expensive. Well, if President Trump turns his view towards his administration, he won't be making it to the White House again. So is this why he's asking people to look at the stars? Without a doubt. He's trying to look at the moon, Persian Gulf, Venezuela. And however, they're not looking inside. When, for example, New York, where they're burying Latin people, Latino people, black people. It's a good metaphor to look at the moon when you're not going to see what's happening in-house. Therefore, I think Donald Trump is having new measures that are spectacular, and his objective is just to deviate the attention, and what would be necessary is to take care of his own people now. Additionally, he has issued an executive decree that is just trying to sell an idea. He is sending executive orders that are populist, and many times he's invading the sovereignty of other countries. He's going over jurisdiction of states. But this man with this type of discourse, he can't be leading the strongest country in the world. Dr. Lajos, in these last minutes, I would like to take advantage because you had launched an idea with the re-edition of a Cold War, not between the Soviet Union and the United States, but between, however, reading Sputnik of April 11th, it says Moscow and the United States agreed to make a workforce on the moon, regarding the moon. And there's a high authority of Russia who's saying that the composition of this group has not yet been determined. We are still establishing the agenda. Because what you just said, there are still some discrepancy between Moscow and the United States on what to do in regards to space. However, with this information, it is evident that what Moscow is trying to do with the United States is not trying to get in a fight, but on the contrary, to create a common space to work towards going further beyond planet Earth. So yes, well, we should not forget that in the first Cold War, there was some type of cooperation, limited, but there was some cooperation on behalf of the United States. I think the United States exported wheat to the Soviet Union, and Russia exported natural gas and petroleum. This doesn't mean that because it was a Cold War, it wasn't hot. There were some levels of cooperation, but I would just like to add that regardless, that before the plummeting of the prices of oil, this agreement that was held between OPEC, Russia, and others non-members, Putin said, if I'm not wrong, that regardless of the agreement on oil production with the United States, this does not mean that the relationships will be at optimum level. Because let's not forget that the United States has imposed some measures against Russia. And apparently the United States will not renew the treaties that are now in place. However, if Biden is elected, this agreement will be renewed. Otherwise, it's not possible. In any case, this agreement for cooperation is still to be seen. However, there is some support of Russia to Syria, to Iran, to Venezuela, and this is a point of coalition with the United States. I would like to say something that just came to my mind. What you said in terms of security. I recall when I lived in Washington, on 2 occasions, high analysts of research systems, research centers, on 2 different occasions they told me that all of the technologies that are in science fiction movies, this is Star Wars, and that already exist. They say that there are exotic type of weapons that are anti-gravity, that can annul the force of gravity and can fly within the cyberspace and beyond it. There's a vessel that's called Aurora that some of these non-identified flying objects could just be weapons of these very strong countries. If this is true, that there is a technology to break the speed of light, this would mean that United States has no need to commit with any country to an agreement. Well, all of this is in theory because we don't know that this is so. I'm just speculating. But it calls my attention, these comments. And there were some reports in this regard. And we know by Sputnik that there are these exotic technologies. Well, if it's true or not, we don't know. But if they're multi-secret, they would never admit it anyway. Doctor, thank you very much. And Carlos Martinez, we are grateful for your time. See you next time. Let's go to our pause. And don't forget, you can answer the question of the day, which is, amid the pandemic of COVID-19, Donald Trump signed an executive order that shows the intention of the United States to exploit the resources beyond Earth. Why now? Why would they try to see to the moon right now? We'll be right back. With our guests of the day, we have analyzed the dispute between these big countries to take over the moon. Although this is community belongings, and it's not permitted to take over.
El espacio exterior, así como en su momento
Foreign
fue
land,
escenario
foreign
de la
space that
disputa entre Estados
used to
Unidos
be
y
the
la Unión
dispute
de
between
Repúblicas Socialistas
the
Soviéticas,
Federation
hoy es
of
otro de
Russia
poder
and
donde grandes
the
y
United
medias
States.
potencias
Now
vierten
we
sus
see that
expectativas.
some big,
Históricamente,
powerful
Estados Unidos ha
countries
tenido una
are
concepción
focusing on.
militarista del
United
espacio,
States has seen
postura
it
que
as
se
a
ha
military
reforzado desde la
extension.
llegada de Donald
This has
Trump a
been
la Casa
reinforced
Blanca,
ever
donde la
since
opinión
Trump
latino ha
took
dicho
over
No es
office.
suficiente tener una
Trump has
simple
said it's
presencia
not
en el
enough to
espacio
have
exterior.
just
Se
presence
debe lograr
on
que
space.
Estados Unidos
It is
lo domine,
important
ya que el
that
espacio
United States will
exterior es un
dominate it
campo de
because the
guerra,
foreign space
como lo
is
son la
a
tierra,
is a
el aire
war
y el mar.
Rusia
field.
y China desafían el predominio
Russia and
global.
China
Estados Unidos
defy
y sus
this
aliados
defy
mantenían
this
las bases
total
de sus
dominion.
armas. Vladimir Putin y Xi
Vladimir
Jinping
Putin
han
and Xi
dicho que ven
Jinping
con
have said
preocupación la
that they are
militarización
worried
del
with the
espacio exterior.
militarization
Han
of the
destacado
foreign
la
space, and
necesidad
they
de
have
lanzar un proceso
highlighted the
negociador
need
para elaborar
to have
documentos
a
políticos
negotiation
a partir del
on how to
proyecto
handle
ruso de un
this
tratado sobre la
topic.
prohibición de armas en el espacio interestelar,
And there
el
has
uso de
been
la
an
fuerza o
agreement
amenaza de
of
usarla contra
of
objetos
rejecting any
espaciales.
use of
No olvidemos que la
conflicts in
extinta Unión
space.
Soviética y Estados
Let's not
Unidos
forget
estuvieron en su
that
momento una
that
dura
Russia
guerra
and the United
fría en la
States
que el desarrollo de
had a
tecnología
Cold
espacial
War for many
estaba
years where
íntimamente ligado
the
al desarrollo de
development of
tecnología
technology
militar, pues planes
was
para lanzar
very
satélites de
much
reconocimiento
conjoined to the
era una de las
military
prioridades
development.
de ambas potencias. Hoy la disputa se
Now the
concentra
dispute
entre
is
Washington y
concentrated
Pekín.
in
En
Washington
marzo del año
and
pasado se planteó la
Beijing.
necesidad de debatir el asunto en el seno de la
There
Organización
was-
de Naciones Unidas con la
In the
presentación
United
de un
Nations,
informe
there
del
was
grupo de
there was
expertos
some discussion in
gubernamentales para
this
prevenir una carrera armamentística en el espacio,
regard.
mientras Estados Unidos,
While the
sin
United
explicar
States,
sus motivos,
with no
bloqueó la
explanation,
discusión del documento. China declaró
blocked
estar
the discussion
comprometida
of
con
this
el uso
document.
pacífico del
China has
cosmos
said that
y
they
se
want to
opone
use a
rotundamente a su
cosmos in a peaceful
militarización.
way, and they don't want to militarize it.
En este momento del análisis me
In this
acompaña el
moment,
licenciado Arturo Barba Navarrete, experto
I
en
want to
temas
speak
de
with
medio
Arturo
ambiente,
Barba
director además
Navarrete.
de
He's an
divulgación
expert
científica de la
in
Secretaría de
environmental
Ciencia, Tecnología
issues.
e Innovación de la Ciudad de México.
He
Bienvenido,
joins us from
licenciado, a
Mexico.
nuestro
Thank you for
programa.
coming.
Ponemos entonces sobre el
Well,
tablero
we're
geopolítico un tema
analyzing
que pasa también por
this
el tamiz
topic that
de la preservación,
should
no
also
solo del
be
ambiente en
seen
la
from
Tierra,
the
sino del
from the
ambiente
point of
de
view
toda
of
nuestra
environmental
galaxia.
protection.
Antes de profundizar en ese
Before
aspecto,
going into
quiero
this, in this
preguntarle,
regard, I
de
would like
acuerdo
to
con su
ask you,
apreciación, de acuerdo con sus estudios, ¿cuán
according to
cerca o
your,
lejos estamos
with your
de
knowledge,
una
how
militarización
near
del
or far
espacio
away
exterior
are we from
por parte de
militarizing
nosotros, los seres humanos?
the outer space on behalf of human beings?
Esto siempre
Well,
ha sido una pretensión
This
de
has
las
always
grandes
been a
potencias
pretension
que
of these great,
efectivamente se
powerful
agudizó
countries
durante
that
la
became
Guerra
more
Fría,
acute
como
during the
bien se
Cold
ha
War,
comentado,
just like it has been
anteriormente.
said previously.
Sin embargo, yo creo que ahora
Nevertheless,
nos encontramos
I
en un
think that
escenario,
we are
totalmente
faced with a
distinto.
different scenario.
Hace 20 años, incluso
20
hace
years
15
ago,
años,
even 15
sin
years
duda, la
ago,
principal
without a
potencia
doubt, the
espacial
main
era Estados Unidos.
space
Pero ahora la
power
situación es
was the United
distinta.
States, but now the situation
Hay
has
muchas
changed.
otras,
There are many other
competencias, por ejemplo,
countries that are competing for
la
the first
Agencia
place.
Espacial Europea,
We have the
por
European
supuesto, la
Space
Agencia Espacial
Agency,
Rusa,
the
la
Russian
Agencia
Space
Espacial
Agency,
China,
Chinese
y hay
Space
otros,
Agency, and there are
actores que
other
antes no
actors
existían, que
that
son las
before did not
empresas
exist,
privadas.
which are the private
Estados
companies.
Unidos, cuando
United
en
States,
2011
when in
dejó atrás
2011
el programa de los
left behind
transbordadores, se
the
ha quedado
spaceship
sin,
programs,
proyectos
has no more,
de envergadura
no
para
large
poder,
programs
volver a enviar,
to
hombres al
send
espacio.
more
Les
men to the
recuerdo que
moon.
a
Let's
partir
not
de
forget
2011,
that
la única
ever
manera en
since
cómo
2011,
Estados Unidos ha
the
podido
only
enviar
way that the United
astronautas a la
States has been
estación
able to
espacial ha
send
sido a través
people to the space
de las
station has been
naves,
through
de los cohetes rusos.
through
Entonces,
Russian
ya
devices.
la diferencia
So,
tecnológica,
the technological
económica
difference,
de Estados
economic
Unidos con
difference
el resto del mundo
with the rest
ya
of the
no es
world
comparable a la
is
que
not
existía
comparable
durante la
with the
Guerra
one that
Fría.
existed before.
Esto cambia
So
mucho
this
el panorama
changes the
porque,
panorama.
aunque la pretensión de Donald Trump
Although the pretension of
efectivamente
Donald
es
Trump
desviar
is
la atención ante el grave problema de la pandemia
to
de COVID-19,
put everybody's attention
y
in
por
something else
supuesto
than his
busca
management of the
algún
COVID pandemic.
culpable o
And of course, what he's trying to
inventarse
do
guerras,
is to
como por ejemplo
invent a
lo que está
war
pretendiendo en contra
or find somebody to
la
blame.
supuesta captura de Maduro, ¿no? Lo cual me
And
parece
for
una
example,
simpleza
this
ridiculez.
the capturing
Lo
Maduro, I
que,
think it's totally
busca,
ridiculous.
Estados
And what they're
Unidos,
seeking
no
is
podría conseguirlo. Después de
are
la
things that he won't be
pandemia,
able to
va a vivir
do.
una grave crisis
After
económica, ya se está
the
sufriendo una grave
pandemic,
crisis
they will have
económica,
a
y el
terrible
programa
recession.
de creación
And this
de nuevos
program
cohetes que pudieran llevar hombres al espacio en
of new
Estados Unidos
space
se va a seguir retrasando.
vessels will
Esto,
be delayed.
tiene un retraso de cuando menos 10
This
años,
has at least a
supuestamente
10-year
durante la
delay,
gestión de
because
Obama se lanzarían
during the
esta nueva
administration of
generación de
Obama,
cohetes. Esto
there
no
will
ha sido
be
así
new
y seguirá
spacecrafts launched
retrasándose dadas las
to the air.
circunstancias.
But of course, with
También es
the
muy
current
probable que
situation,
en
it's
las
very
próximas
probable that
elecciones
in the upcoming
estadounidenses en noviembre,
elections in November,
ya ahora el panorama ya no es tan alentador para
the
Donald Trump.
panorama is not
Muy
so positive for
probablemente,
Donald Trump. Most
por lo menos
probably,
en ciertos sectores
at least
de la
in
sociedad
some sectors
estadounidense,
of society,
hay un
there is
enojo y un descrédito
there
de
is
la
some
mala
anger and
gestión de la
discredit
administración
against the
del
Trump
actual presidente
administration.
estadounidense. Y por supuesto
And of course,
esta
this
pretendida explotación de los
this
recursos de la
pretension
luna
to exploit the
está
resources
muy
of the
lejos
moon
todavía
is
de
very far
poder
from now.
conseguirse. Hace el año pasado que se
Just
celebraron
last
los 50
year,
años de la llegada del hombre a
that
la
there was
luna,
the celebration of
Donald
50
Trump
years from the
volvió
man of
a
the moon. Donald Trump
sugerir
once
y a
again
lanzar la
suggested and
iniciativa de
launched this
enviar
initiative to
nuevamente
send
a astronautas estadounidenses
astronauts,
a la
American
luna. Yo
astronauts,
creo que
to the
esto no
moon.
va a ser posible,
This,
no en los
I don't
siguientes
think it will be
5
possible. I don't
años,
think it's going to be
sino ni
possible in
siquiera
the
en los
next
próximos 10
5
años.
years nor
Esto,
10 years.
dada
This,
la dependencia
since
ahora que
there is
tiene Estados
the
Unidos
United States is so
tecnológica para enviar
dependent
hombres al espacio,
on technology
la
to
crisis
send men to the
económica
moon, and
y la
now with this
crisis política
crisis
que se
and the
avecina,
political
va a
crisis that is
retrasar
upcoming, this will
estos
delay
planes. Así
these
es que yo
plans.
creo
So
que debemos estar
I think that
tranquilos.
we should
Si
be
bien es
calm,
cierto que
and if it's
Rusia,
true, Russia
con Vladimir Putin y
with
Estados
Vladimir
Unidos tienen,
Putin
y Donald Trump,
and
Donald
on the
Trump
other
tiene una
hand, Donald
excelente
Trump,
relación personal, y los intereses de sus
let's not
naciones
forget that they
no
have both
siempre van
interests
en
of
la
their
misma
lands, and
dirección.
they're
Y
not
en el
always in
caso
the
de
same
las
direction.
cuestiones espaciales,
So
por
in the
supuesto que
space
Rusia está
affairs,
consciente
Russia is
de que
totally
ellos,
aware
en muchos sentidos,
that in
tienen la
many
última
ways
palabra.
they
No
are
creo
still
que
the authority.
permitan que los Estados
And I don't
Unidos
think that they will
pueda
allow United
explotar
States
los recursos de la luna
they will,
para
to
beneficio
exploit
propio.
the resources of the moon
Como
for
ya se
their own
comentó
benefit.
anteriormente, hay
Just as we spoke
principios
before, there are
aprobados por la
principles that
Asamblea
are
General de las Naciones
approved
Unidas,
by
el tratado.
United
Hablando de esos
Nations.
principios, quiero enfocarme en la
Speaking of these
siguiente
principles,
pregunta,
I want to
licenciado,
focus
y
on the
además le
next
agradezco
question.
esa tranquilidad
I,
que nos
I am,
ofrece, ¿no?
I love the
De
way
que
you
sea
present it because
prorrogada
it's totally
la
calm.
carrera aeroespacial por parte de Estados Unidos, sobre todo que se enfoca más en los temas de seguridad, aunque detrás vemos que hay
And
también
well, we
pretensiones
still
de
have to see that
explotar
there are
recursos
the
propios
intention
de
to
la
exploit the
Luna.
resources on the moon.
Pero le digo, basado en esos
However,
principios,
based on these
también se me
principles,
ocurre preguntarle además
I
como
would like to
experto en ciencia,
also
tecnología y medio
ask
ambiente
you,
que es
as
usted,
the
ya tenemos
expert in
una deuda
environment you
enorme
are,
con nuestro planeta Tierra
we
que
do
aún
already
no
have a
logramos
huge
saldar
debt
a propósito
to
del
our
Día de la Tierra que
to our
recién
Earth.
estuvimos conmemorando. ¿Qué protocolos
What would be the
deberían
protocols
existir
that should
para
be
que
put in
esta
place
deuda que ya la
so
humanidad
this
tiene
this
con el
debt
planeta
that
Tierra no se
humanity already
extienda
has
más
with
allá
planet
en
Earth
nuestra
won't
galaxia?
extend to another
Bueno,
galaxy?
la verdad es que ahí
Well,
hay un grave déficit
the truth is
de
that
la
there's a
humanidad
big
que
deficit
tenemos
on behalf
que
of humanity.
analizar y analizarlo de una manera muy crítica.
And of course, we have to
Porque
analyze it in a
cuando
very
Donald
critical
Trump se
way.
salió de los acuerdos de
Because
París,
don't forget, when Donald Trump
para
left the
disminuir
Paris Accord
las emisiones
to
de gases de efecto
decrease
invernadero, la
the
comunidad
greenhouse
internacional,
gases,
si
the
bien
international
cuestionó
community
esta decisión,
was
tiene
criticizing this
elementos
decision.
como para hacerlo
But of course,
vinculante
they
y
don't have
hacerle
any way to
sentir
obligate
y
United
y
States to
ejercer
go through
sanciones a este tipo de políticas
with these type of
eh,
policies
que van en contra del medio ambiente
that
del
go
planeta.
against the environment and
Entonces,
therefore the
los
planet.
organismos
So
internacionales
the
tienen que
international
establecer justamente esas
organizations
medidas
must
vinculantes
establish
para
the
establecer sanciones
obligatory
severas
laws
a este tipo
and
de
to
iniciativas
impose
que están
strict
causando
sanctions
daño
on
al
those
planeta.
who are
Ahora
harming
que, medio
planet
mundo
Earth.
está
Now that
en
more than half
cuarentena
of the
y en
people are in
distanciamiento
quarantine
social,
and social
es
distancing,
notable
it is so
las
easy
imágenes
to see
desde el espacio, cómo se ve la claridad
how you can see
del
clarity
ambiente.
of
No se han
the
emitido
air that is in the
los mismos
city.
contaminantes que suelen emitirse
The
día a
same
día ante la
elements in
eventualidad de la
contaminating
pandemia.
are
Las
diminishing. there are some species of animals that are taking over their natural spaces, their original spaces. But of course, that had been used by human beings. We can also see that the air and water is much cleaner. And I think that humanity should analyze this seriously and establish sanctions for countries who don't go through with the agreements. And in the same way, establish sanctions for this pretension of Donald Trump to take over the resources that he might exploit from the moon. Of course, this could have adverse consequences for our planet, not only for our planet, but anything that can happen with our planet. Our planet and the moon are considered as a binary planet. This is one planet that is divided in two. So they depend one on the other. If the moon suffers some type of damage, it would be reflected on the other. So this is why the international organisms of environment and the international treaty and these organizations that do research on environmental subjects should analyze seriously this. I think this will be so. Once this problem is, we overcome this pandemic, I'm sure that the international organisms will put their eyes on Donald Trump's pretension. Thank you very much for your time to Critical Moves of Telesur. See you soon. Let's go to our conclusions. Last year, during the celebration of the 70th anniversary, NATO established as a priority foreign space and the infrastructure of telecommunications, including 5G. In 2019, it was also 50 years of man landing on the moon. So it's not a coincidence that in this context, the main world powers are putting their focus on beyond in the space. It doesn't really matter now who was the first one to put their flags there. Now there are countries that are supporting one or the other, and they are developing technology to set foot on this planet. Are we at the doors of a new Cold War? Will this be a Battlestar Galactica beyond the Hollywood? So buy your popcorn anytime it might begin. Meanwhile, we close our geopolitical stage.